Priya Panda, the singer of Diemonds and a Kiss fanatic and a trailblazer for sleaze metal, is launching her solo career, and I got to talk to her. Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Belgian Jasper. If this is your first time, hit that subscribe button right now. Today I get to talk to an extremely interesting person. Priya is obviously known for fronting Toronto's sleaze metal band Diemonds. She's crisscrossed the world on different tours and also helped other bands on their tours. Nowadays, Priya lives in Los Angeles and she has kicked off her solo career.
She's a freaky girl, freak out. Another world might have loved you. Yeah, they loved you.
Congratulations on the new video for Freaky Girl. How are the comments so far?
They're great. There's a lot of positive comments coming from all over the world. It's a lot different than what I've done in the past, so every compliment and every kind word has been, kind of spurring me forward to keep making music and keep creating.
Very much sounds like you're paying tribute to a lot of the leading ladies of the 80s with your second single, I think it was, Shook You Off.
Yeah.
I definitely picked up on a lot of Paula Abdul vibes. Who are some of the biggest inspirations for these songs?
That era was a really cool era for strong chicks who sang about what they were going through. I would say Vanity is a big one. She's one of Prince's proteges, and she made some albums that I'm pretty much obsessed with and I've been listening to for a long time, and her story and her career really influenced me. It was just so interesting. She kind of existed in an underground place. Like Paula Abdul became super mainstream, and that wasn't really, I've always kind of been an underground person when it comes to a lot of the bands I like. In the time that Paula Abdul was popular, I probably would have gone to see Stacey Q, or I would have gone to go see someone just a little smaller and a little more where you could see it closer in person.
A little edgier maybe also.
Just a little more, not so watered down for the masses.
Yeah. How did you get into those people as influences? Because if you look at Vanity, when she was at the height of her popularity, you were either very young or not yet born yet.
Honestly, a big portion of how I came into this was buying records. I was such a big record collector when I was a kid. Probably when I was like 12 or 13, I started going to garage sales with my mom, and I didn't know what I was getting half the time, because I was just being attracted to the cover, or I'm getting this because I'm getting 10 for $1. Whatever this is, I'm gonna figure it out. And knew Vanity, of course, she has that connection with rock and roll because she dated a lot of rock stars, but she never really made rock music. Mm-hmm. And she was, more in the realm of Prince's music, which is super influential to me. And I don't really know any person who doesn't like at least one Prince song. And that universal appeal is something that rock never doesn't really, that's not where rock sits. Rock has always kind of aligned itself with a lot of outsiders.
I know you feel like giving up. I know you feel like giving up, 'cause you're in a rut.
And so you mentioned that you went, record hunting with your mom. Does that mean that your family and your community were always very supportive of exploring music?
Not at all. She didn't know what records were. Like, they're from India and just had a different upbringing altogether. It was something that was quite separate from my upbringing. Yeah. So, and it still remains that way to this day. Like, when my parents call, they love me, but they're more, what did you do today? Not what are you doing creatively, or what are you making? That's not something they would ever ask, because it's not something that they ever had the luxury of thinking about, because they worked really, really hard going to shows and starting a band, and a lot of people had their parents 100% involved, or at least 60%. I don't know for a fact, but I feel like that's why I'm so aligned to like the first kind of shows that I went to when I was a kid were punk shows, where a lot of the kids there, I think, felt quite disaffected with the relationships that they had with their parents. Had that adolescence, that streak where me and my parents butt heads a lot, and getting out of the house and going to shows and having my friends and then doing my thing, gave me peace and allowed me to be at home because it was so different. It was something that was actually really difficult to break out of, and that's why I'm still really shy about it, and I have a hard time talking about what I'm doing and what I'm making, because it's always just been something that I do for myself.
Take me back. I'll never hurt you again.
I'm just like an introvert, really.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for sharing. That you definitely still embrace your traditional roots as well. You know, you do introduce yourself as a Maharashtrian Canadian. So at the same time that you feel like, okay, you know, with my family, I don't really have that connection. How was it for you getting into the North American hard rock and metal scene? Because let's be honest, the North American scene is not always the most diverse or inclusive as we'd like it to be.
I was still generally, you know, the only female of color or of a background in a lot of places that I went, a lot of shows that I played. For now, I've gotten to the point where I want to incorporate a lot of my cultural background into at least my visuals. I wish I knew more about the music, and I wish I knew more about the culture and the tradition than I even do. You know, when I was touring with Diemonds a lot, we pretty much I was away every Diwali for like 8 or 9 years. Be like missing Christmas like 9 times in a row, because it's not the holiday here at the forefront. The band didn't take a break for my, you know, cultural background. It was actually prime touring season. I further grew a distance between myself and my traditions, and now I feel almost like compelled to bring it back into my life, because I feel like it's such a part of me, but I've just stepped so far back away from it that it's like losing a part of yourself.
So that must have made it even extra special then also when with Diemonds you got to play in India.
It was surreal because it was very early on in our time as a band, and we kind of fit the bill partially, and I imagine because I am Indian. The band that was supposed to go play there was the band who won Canadian Idol, and we actually knew a lot of the people in that band, and they were like, well, the tour's falling apart, we're not going, and they're going to be replacing the band, we should put you in it. Sure, let's go to India. And we did it. We went to India, and it was exactly as crazy as you would imagine. You know, we did get kidnapped, they did take our passports, we did have to flee the country. Every possible thing you could ever imagine happened. But also we did get to play some shows that were insane. You never know what's going to happen in rock and roll, that's for sure.
I think I kind of got to know you guys around your second album, Never Wanna Die from 2015, which I thought was an amazing album. And then I think it's almost the 2-year anniversary of the third album that came out. Since then it's been a little bit more quiet around Diemonds. Is the band on hold with you moving to Los Angeles? Where are you guys at?
Well, I'll say that the band was all kind of already on hold before I moved to Los Angeles. I wanted to give myself the chance to work and play elsewhere and create in a different environment. And we do the winters anymore. They're just where you've done like 4 winter tours and your van's broken down, you're sleeping it's like negative 40 outside, and it's 5 of you sleeping in the van, just like, I don't know. It wasn't just me. Things were tense at the end, and we did our last record. And a big thing that happened was when we made the Bad Pack. It was actually originally made in 2010, but then we got signed, and we put it out in 2012, and that's generally the version that most people heard, because we toured so much for that 3-year period. And so Never Wanna Die got really put on, it just kept getting delayed and delayed. And that's, I think, honestly where the beginning of a lot of the tension began in terms of our creative outputs. In our first EP, we had a super big punk influence.
Hold that horse, which way wanna go? Blink of an eye, and it's out of control. Oh yeah!
On our first album, we had a super big, hard rock, 80s, Bow Hill, whatever, winger influence, whatever you want to call it. However we portrayed that was what we were listening to and what we were into, Cinderella and all that stuff. And then, by the third album, I don't know, they moved around a lot. And by the fourth record, I was finally getting into where we were headed, because I think the melodies and the songs were easier to sing along to, and that's the kind of stuff I listen to. Everything's super melodic and super catchy, and that's what I wanted to do too. By the time that we were making that album, we were in such miscommunication that like Daniel didn't end up playing on the record. Cece plays all the guitar on the record. Yeah, it was just a big change, and like things were not the same that for all of us that they once were, I guess. We're all a lot better now, but you know, we were just having really bad communication issues. We'd spent a long time together. We'd grown up together. And for like 4 years, we'd come home from 6-week tours, and me, DK, and Cece would live in a 2-bedroom apartment together. We did that for like 3.5 years, but it was just an extension of the van. And like the apartment was as big as a fucking van, you know. And so when we'd come home, and that was our life. It was just, and it would be a continuation.
Yeah, you didn't get to unplug.
No, of like the Jägermeister at 5 a.m. and the like staying up all night and having people come over all the time. Like it just felt like the tour never stopped. Yeah, and I think that last record, so to encapsulate this whole story of me moving to LA, it's like what came first, the chicken or the egg, right? Like it definitely wasn't me moving away that affected like the relations within the band. That was much pre-existing. And so since then, though, we've gotten what I would say, like when I started Diemonds, we got our dream gig. Like, you know, since when I moved away, like when you kind of step away from something, you get what you need, you know. And what I needed was to play on the Monsters Rock. Seriously, I did. It's an 80s cruise. We really don't have any place being there. We didn't start in the 1980s or the 90s. Didn't even start in the early 2000s. Like we, you know, it was just, it's so far away that to have a new band on there is rare. We had to wait 9 years for them to call upon us, and it was like, oh my God, this is like the gig that we've always wanted. Like Veins playing on the cruise, and so is Killer Dwarfs and Kicks, like all at once. We've never even seen, you know, Kicks. They don't play in Ontario. Being on the cruise was, it felt like we'd come full circle. Like I don't know, it validated a lot. And
not to mention more and more close collaborations with Kiss as well. How was that as a Kiss fan? That must have been quite amazing.
As a Kiss freak, it was like insane, you know. It was crazy because when I moved here, I was obviously like, wow, making a big change. I'm stepping away from the band. So if somebody calls us tomorrow to do a gig in Oakville, we're not available now. We'll still play, but it might be take a little more planning, and that's okay. Yeah. We're all okay with that now. And when I got here, you know, it was almost quite a change and a chance meeting that got me involved in that world. There were a lot of just small tasks, running, being a runner, writing like cue cards for the band, and you know, it was still very cool though. Like it's like, okay, I'm very skilled in all this. I've been touring for 10 years. There's so much stuff going on on the day-to-day for a band of that size. You know, I'm just like geeking out. And me and Daniel got to work at the New Jersey Kiss Expo. That was fun because we're in a room with Ace Frehley, 1 foot away from us, you know.
So if you had to choose between Kiss or the Misfits,
yeah,
you have to pick.
Wow, the first ever music thing I ever did with somebody else where I could like sing with them was a Misfits cover band. In terms of what I thought I could perform at that time, I'm pretty sure Misfits was more at my skill level than Kiss, because actually, you know, those harmonies aren't a joke.
But you also worked with Jerry Only not, you know, too long ago in the Hellfire Hearts, formerly known as the She Demons.
It was insanely crazy to get the call to do the She Demons gig because Never Wanna Die came out, I believe, in August 2015 or something. I got the call for the whole She Demons gig in April 2015. It was an incredibly tough decision to take that gig, especially at that time. And I think that my being in another band was so, at such a time, was so brutal to Diemonds because we had a lot of tour opportunities that we ended up having to pass on. And it was interesting and fun to play that character, but I will say that the bands conflicted with one another. There was a time where I had to fly to Tokyo in the middle of a She Demons tour because Diemonds got gigs, and of course you always want to be that busy as a musician, but God, you hate letting people down. And it was really hard on Diemonds, and it was really hard on She Demons because they were just getting to know me, and they were like, why isn't this person committed to this project? It's great. And I'm like, it is great, but I've been in this band for ages, and we're gonna get to play this festival in Tokyo. I feel like Diemonds had to turn down a lot of experiences, the kind of experiences we were waiting for a really, really, really long time because I was away a lot. That year I was away 9 months out of 12 between the two bands. So I was just all over the place. And then when I think back, it was like great memories for me to be away that much, but I just wish we could get back there.
You know, She Demons, had that horror punk image as well that the Misfits bring, and especially when you have all female bands, image becomes a really big part of the whole package. You're not a person that is, that would shy away from embracing, your sexuality and your art. At the same time, you've mentioned a few times, you consider yourself an introvert, and you're a little bit more of a reserved person. Then also still at the same time, you can listen to Diamond songs with, Ain't That Kind of Girl or Warrior on the last album that seem to share a very personal but a very different kind of yourself, much more the tough, take no prisoners person. We've been talking about all the projects that you've been working on and how hard you have to work for that. Does it bother you extremely that there's so many people out there that just discredit you as a cool chick or a sexy chick in rock, or do those kinds of comments just give you more energy to work even harder? How do you perceive that?
Well, I think when I was especially more in the middle of it, where it constantly came up, like how do we want to portray this album? How do we want to, we're getting to be in this magazine, what photo do we want to submit? Because this is the 5 seconds we have to capture somebody's attention. There's so many great bands out there, and we wanted to, you want to be a part of it. When I was younger, I was a lot more at odds with those two things. Like, I was like, oh, I just want to be a badass bitch, but like, I also just want to have cleavage up to my neck, like I couldn't decide. And I'm like, and then eventually it came to the point where I was like, why can't it be both? Front men are sexy as hell. What about Axl Rose? Like, he's slithering around like a snake. Not just him. There's Sebastian Bach, Steven Pearson, who for me, it was like, when I look at him, that's like what, I see like a version of myself because I found him so interesting growing up. That was like, oh my God, this guy's insane and he's so cool. It's like charged with sexuality. All the songs and the lyrics are sexual too, but women have to answer the questions about it. I guess you can say we're the ones who have to carry the weight of sexuality on our shoulders. Some of that is a part of who you are. You can't really shut it down or turn it off when you want to. And that's when I really realized that, it's just it's not all of who I am, and it doesn't, all I do is what I look like, or all I am is what I look like. That's not the case at all. So what I portray is who I am inside. And a lot of that is that I embrace that side of myself. I embrace my femininity as much as I embrace my masculinity. I'm not afraid of either of those sides of myself. And I think that a lot of the greatest musicians and frontmen had the same experience. People who are charismatic and intelligent, I feel like they're able to embrace the female and the male. It helps you grow as a person.
We're waiting for an EP called Snacks? When should we expect that one to come?
That's a tough question because everything has changed so much. The digital world is so intangible. It's hard to hold on to something. It's hard to, everything feels really fluid and shifting. It's not the same as like, okay, here is the record, and you smell the record and put the record on the turntable. It's like, my song's in a playlist for 1.5 weeks. I just want to make music. I'm excited to share my music with people, but whether or not they ever heard it, I would probably still be making it. And that's something I came to the realization of when I moved here and continued, despite all of the years I'd spent on something that might not amount to anything, all the money I'd spent, all the friendships I had come and gone, all the bridges you burn and rebuild, and all of that, all the drinks you drink and all the drugs you do and all of that shit, it comes to your mind and you're like, oh my gosh, what was all of that? Like, I finally had time to think about it all. And the first thing that came to my mind is I have to make music.
It's a very comforting thought that no matter what's going to happen with the world, that there's always going to be more music by Priya Panda coming out. So that's very cool. Well,
Thank you.
Priya, I want to thank you so much for all your time today. I want to thank you for being very open, and I'm super excited to see what else is going to come out.
All right.
Well,
thanks.
Thank you so much. Really.
You are awesome for watching this video. Click right here to see more content like it and subscribe to the channel.